Hi friends, it's Amy O. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about balance in your life. And when I talk with patients about balance, I speak to them about the domains in their life. And I identify 6 different domains. So I'm going to kind of go through each of those and talk briefly about how you achieve greater balance, when you are imbalanced, what that feels like. So I'll start with self. Self is the first of the categories, and we start there because it all starts with us. And in the self category, to achieve greater balance, achieve greater clarity, we really want to be thinking about how can we grow? How can we continue to learn? How can we value and treat ourselves? And so one of the things that's really important when we think about self is we don't ignore self when we think about the other domains. We incorporate self. How does the decision, how does the conversation, how does the movement impact self and all the other domains? And when we're enriching self, we're learning, we're taking on new hobbies, we are getting out and discovering who we are through trial and error, really. Experiences help us to understand ourselves so much. A lot of people love self-help books. I think they are great. I think they give us a place to reflect and a place to really dig into specific topics. So when we think about self, we want to give self as much time, sometimes more time than some of the other domains. Because if we aren't caring for self, if we aren't growing self, we can get lost in the other domains. The next one, intimate partner. The intimate partner domain, that is where we find love. That is where we find connection with a one-on-one. And in the intimate partner domain, we really want to honor self. And a lot of times when I'm talking to patients, that's a problem because they find someone that they really, really like and they start to ignore themselves. They stop doing the things that they want to do. They stop engaging with people outside of the relationship. They start to think about what would the other person want or like, instead of thinking, how does what I'm doing help me and help grow this relationship? And so in the intimate partner space, we really want to be thinking about how that relationship helps us to become a fuller, better version of ourselves. And when that is not happening, we might want to consider that not being the right relationship for us. Oftentimes when we start a new relationship, it takes up all of our emotional energy and we get really excited and we dive in and we're all about that person. We then start to ignore ourselves. We sometimes don't put as much time into our friends, which is another category. We start to spend more time with them than we do with our family. We may or may not miss work because we want to hang out with our person. And community, which is the next domain, that one gets lost too. So we have to be cautious, especially with intimate partner, that we don't dive so far in that we lose ourselves in the other domains. So that one's really important. Friends is one that I hope each and every one of you values for life, because our friends are there for us through each and every season. They are there to see us grow. They are there to help us grow. They are there to push us to grow. They are the ones that will be there when our breakups happen, when we change jobs, when we fight with family, when we're not sure of who we are. Our friends are often the ones who will give us that information. So we want to make sure that we're donating a lot of energy to honoring friendships. Now, on the other side of that, if one of our friendships or a group of friends is taking us away from who we are, and this happens a lot in adolescence where we want to be accepted, we want to be part of a crowd, and so sometimes we kind of neglect our own beliefs and our own values to get to that place where we are accepted by those friends. And a lot of times when I'm working with adolescents, they say, well, I really want these people to like me. And I'm like, but do you like them? Are they the kind of people that are going to make you a better person? Are they the kind of people that are going to care for you in difficult times? Because when we choose friends, when we stick with friends, we want to make sure they're going to stick with us. And so I tell them, if that's not someone you would pick for yourself, why are you worried about what they think about you? So when we give friends equal measure, when we give friends our time, our energy, our thoughts, and give them the space to help us grow, it really does help us to have a really balanced life. So never forget the friends, because they will hopefully be the ones that are there through every single season of your life. Family, we start with them. In the beginning, when we look at these domains, I like to look at them in a pie chart. When we look at these domains as a child, our family is a huge component, especially before we go to school. It is where we learn just about everything in the beginning. We observe how people treat each other, talk to each other, how they take care of themselves, how they take care of other people. And our family can be an incredibly valuable teacher. Sometimes, unfortunately, our family is not the best teacher. Sometimes we learn some really bad habits there. Sometimes we learn how to fly under the radar because there's an unstable person in the home, or we learn how to perform to get love and acceptance. And that is probably one of the hardest things I see with patients, is when they're still operating from that narrative of I'm not valued unless. And so sometimes we learn some pretty bad habits there. But if our family is healthy, we want to make sure that we incorporate them into our lives, because they can remind us of who we are, where we came from, and some of the things we've learned along the way. So they are a really valuable domain to put some energy into. They tend to stick around and be there for us even when we're not giving them time. As we grow into different phases of our life, our families, specifically our parents, will be like, oh, well, they'll have time for me sometime. It's important to make time for everyone that gives you a healthy and positive situation. So definitely family is a valuable one, especially in the early years. As we age, we sometimes build our own families. And so that becomes our primary focus. But our family of origin, the ones where we started, we don't want to forget about them, because they really want to hear from us and see us and be able to love on us too. So family is a really important one. Okay. Fifth domain, career. Now, as we're growing, we're not necessarily thinking about career. We may be attending school. We may be learning in the community. We may be getting ideas about who we want to become. But our career is a space, as we get older, where we put a lot of our time, a lot of our emotional energy, a lot of our effort goes into our career. And sometimes as a result, that career takes up way too much space in the pie chart. We start to work overtime, think about things on the weekends. We're not present with our people because we're thinking about work. We're driving towards this place where we have to get to somewhere. And while that is very valuable, it is important to remember that life balance, you still got to have the other domains. So if you're working 70 hours a week, which some people do, there's not going to be as much time or energy for the other pieces of the pie. So we really want to try to be as mindful as possible that that is important. Growing and becoming the best in our career is a good thing. However, it can't be at the cost of the other places. We don't want our partners, we don't want our families, we don't want our friends to be like, we never see you, you're always working. And so it's really, really important that we think about work as a piece of the pie and try to be as balanced as possible. There are times, seasons in our life where it becomes bigger. But then we have to remember, put time into the other domains so that we can have balance in our lives. Because with balance, we have greater clarity. The last one is community. Now, when we're growing as children, our community is small. It's our neighborhood, it's our church, it's where we go to school. Maybe we're involved in scouts or something like that, where our community is selected for us because we're children and we don't get to make those decisions for ourselves. We might make a friend on the playground, and that can become part of our larger community. But at the beginning, it's a very small space. That's why we lack a lot of perspective, because we haven't seen the world. We haven't intermingled with different types of people, because most of the time it's a pretty homogenous group in that community. As we get older, high school, we have opportunities to go to different places, meet people from different schools, compete in things. Maybe it's athletics, academics, wherever, where we start to learn about other people. We start to grow our community. We start to network. That's when we really start to do that. And as we get into college, wow, especially if we go out of state, we get to meet so many different kinds of people. And then we start to select the community that resonates with us. We start to hang out with people that make sense to us. And so we may find them at work, we may find them at church, we may find them, for me, I found a lot of people in volunteering, found a great community there. We will find them in places that align with the things that are important to us. The missions we are on is where we're going to start to build our community. We might also participate in sport as an adult, and that builds community. I golf, which gives me a huge community of people that golf, and there's always stories and things to talk about because we have something in common. So community is a place where We develop a bigger part of ourselves based on our interests, based on the things we're passionate about. And so community needs to have space. The magic of community, this is my favorite one, and I saved it for last for this reason, is that community can create jobs, help us build our career. Community can create new friendships. Community can help us to grow as a person by understanding what we are invested in, what we are passionate about. And it also can sometimes land an intimate partner here and there if you're lucky, because you're doing something that you care about, that you're invested in, and that you're aligned on, and that can bring people together. So sometimes our family's even involved in our community, especially if it's like faith-based or something like in our local area. So when we think about these domains, I want for you to think about that pie chart, and we want balance, because we also can look at it like spokes on a wheel. If one spoke is off because there's not enough balance, then we aren't moving right. We're not feeling like we've got all of our ducks in a row. We feel sometimes overwhelmed. We feel undersupported. We feel disconnected. And so when we think about these life domains and we think about balance and we think about how we're going to achieve greater clarity, we really want to tap in to all the domains. So for instance, if I'm talking with a patient who is like, I lost myself. I was in this relationship. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm like, okay, I want you to tap into your family, if that's a good space. I want you to tap into your friends. I want you to tap into what you enjoy, what interests you. Oftentimes they're like, I have no idea. So we do some work on that. But basically it's look at the other domains and see where you feel flourishing, where you feel like things are going in the right direction, because that's where you want to put your energy. So sometimes the pie is not even because, let's say we're not dating or in an intimate partner relationship. We have more room for community, more room for work, more room for friends, more room for family, and more room for self. Let's say our intimate partner relationship is magical and amazing. We might not spend as much time with our friends or with our family because we're so involved and engrossed in that relationship. So we have to remember, check in with my family, check in with my friends. Don't ignore self, because that is an important piece of the puzzle always, because the more you're growing self, the more you can be for each of these other domains. You can be a better worker, you can be a better partner, you can be a better friend, you can be better for your community, you can help the community more when you know who you are and what you want. So when we think about this in the bigger picture and how it impacts clarity, clarity is that space where we understand and have enough information so that we can make decisions and make action happen that aligns with what we are, what we need, and where we want to go. And so I ask each of you to really think about how you're tapping into each of your domains. How much energy are you giving and how much energy are you getting back? Because reciprocation is a really big piece of this too. If you have friends that you love and you guys have amazing times together, but you're doing all the work, well, you might want to have a conversation about that and be like, I'm really looking for greater reciprocation in this space. We might also think about how work might be taking us away from things that we love, things that are important to us, and maybe figure out how we can scale back a little bit so that we can get more balance. That work-life balance is a really big one, and we'll probably hit on that in a bunch of spaces. But today, I just really wanted you to think about those life domains. So I'm going to go through them one more time, just so you remember. We have ourself. We have to give to ourself. We have our intimate partner relationship where we find love, where we find connection, but we don't lose ourselves. We have our friends. Our friends are supposed to enrich us. We're supposed to grow with them. They're supposed to hold us accountable. They're supposed to be there for the tough stuff and also to celebrate all of our big wins. Then we have our family. We started with them if we were lucky. They stand behind us. They remind us of who we are. They put forth values that we have adopted, and that's a space of connection. And when things are hard, we can go back there and go, wait, where did we come from? So remember family, then career, school, education, wherever we're moving towards this bigger space of work. That space, probably from 25 to 55, takes up a lot of space, a lot of time, a lot of heads thinking. And so we want to make sure that we're remembering to factor it in how it's impacting the rest of the domains. And we also want to make sure that we give it its own space. We grow with that. And we want to have a career that really fills us up. I love all the songs that are like, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life. well, you're working, but it just doesn't feel like work as much. And then community. Community can enrich us. Community can build friendships. It can help us find people that we can fall in love with. It can help us to grow ourselves. It can help us to enrich in a way that helps other people at the same time. So going through all of those and thinking about the way your life looks right now, if you don't feel balance, if you're feeling unsure and you're lacking clarity, take a look at those domains and see how much energy you're putting into it. Draw a pie chart and be like, how much time, or emotional energy am I giving to each of those domains? And if it's uneven, how can I fix that? And that's a space where we can grow and build our clarity. So if this video resonates with you and it is something that you really connect with, you can feel free to like, to follow, to share, and we'll see you again real soon.